Before today's show officially begins, I have a very important announcement. And that is, we've got coffee, we've got coffee, we've got lots and lots of coffee. Yes, all you alcoholics out there, all you neurotic maniacs, we've got coffee through Anarcho Coffee, a libertarian coffee company. It's called Morning Roar, named after our long defunct morning edition of articles we used to write on lionsofliberty.com. But now it's just a sweet-ass coffee that you can wake yourself up with, be roaring for the day of liberty. You can find it at lionsofliberty.com/coffee. Order some today.
Welcome to Electric Libertyland, here on the Lions of Liberty podcast, your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty with your host, Brian McWilliams.
All right, everybody, welcome to Electric Libertyland, episode number 127. And this is a very special episode wherein we will be drinking liquor. In fact, libertarians will join me in drinking liquor in living rooms, although I think only one of us is technically in a living room at the moment. I think it's just the first man I will introduce here, which is the one and only Mike Brancatelli from Mikeadelic podcast. Mikey Spots, what are you doing?
I actually am in a living room, and I'm drinking a nice double IPA. They got good beer out here in Denver, and that's why I moved here.
No, it's the one and only reason. That's why nobody moves there for the mountains. They don't move for the sunsets. They don't move for the drugs. They definitely don't move for the women. A lot of mountain.
They got it all wrong. You know?
Women, right?
They thought I was going to be moving here for the cannabis. I moved for the beer.
The old bait and switch. All right, and also, in addition to Mike, I am joined by Lance Cayko, the strangest name I've ever heard.
The best name you've ever heard.
And it is amazing. It is amazing. And of course, Lance is the communications director for the Libertarian Party of Colorado and was integrally involved with the legalization efforts for the legalization of I'll say this wrong. Help me here, people. You're both far more involved in this than I am. Psilocybin?
Decriminalization of psilocybin.
Bingo, baby. So Lance was involved with that pretty heavily, even quoted and even mentioned in a Vice article, one of the most, God, talk about just a shameful fall from grace is Vice magazine, by the way. It used to be fantastic, and now it's a liberal shill publication, but still, good you were in it. So, gentlemen, welcome to Electric Libertyland.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here, Brian.
All right. So, as you said, Mike already said he's drinking a double IPA. I saw it's a big boy can. Lance, I got a glimpse of what you were drinking. What do you have in your hand?
I'm drinking baby 7-ounce Corona Extras.
Now, can I ask why? Because the only time I've ever drank one of those in my life was when I was on a beach in a tropical island. And that was, I think, halfway to fuck the tourists into paying full price for a 7-ounce beer. I think that's a lot of it. But number two, they say it's because it got hot so quickly. So you had to have a little beer. Is it blazing hot in your Colorado house right now? Is your hand
very hot today? Yep. We're very close to the sun, Brian. I don't know if you know that. We're 5,280 feet in the air. It is hot here. It's very hot. I've been working construction, man. I felt like some tiny little beers that I could just crush today. So
I like it. It makes you feel like a man.
Yeah, sure.
Also, I got to ask this. So Mike just moved in January to Denver. And Mike, elevation sickness, is it a thing, or altitude sickness? Have you experienced it? Is it real? Because I think people make it up that are just pussies.
Yeah, I just think it's another myth coming from the Democrats. It's like, they're just trying to ruin everything.
God, if they can't ruin our air, they'll ruin our elevation. All right, well, gentlemen, we are here drinking. Oh, and I'm drinking a martini, which for those not in the know, I'm going to share this whole video to our Pride group. Anybody paying $10 or more gets the video, so they're going to see me knocking over my full martini, which now has approximately 30% left of this delicious dirty martini I made. But we're going to kick into it here. And I wanted to have both you guys on. I thought it was just a perfect time because, Denver has just decriminalized psilocybin and the use of mushrooms, which have numerous benefits. And we could talk about that. But, Lance, you just brought it to my attention that this legalization may be very short-lived. Because is it literally today that they're going to have this vote on a runoff for the mayor?
Well, here's how I usually do interviews and podcasts, and I prepare for them about a half hour before, just like this one, right?
So did I. Don't worry.
Like a true degenerate libertarian. But it was news to me too. So there's a runoff election because of the margin. If neither candidate for running for mayor in Denver gets less than 50%, then it goes into a runoff election with the top two vote earners. So Mayor Hancock is going for re-election, and if he gets re-elected, he's indicated that he'll stomp out Denver mushrooms if re-elected, which is a total bummer. And it was because he was visited by one of the mayors or something like that from over in Amsterdam, and he basically said, you need to, you did one thing with with legalizing marijuana and cannabis, but if you keep going further, then you're going to be the drug capital of the world. But I got to tell you, when I have people come in from out of town, they already know what they're coming here for. They're going to go to a pot shop, then we're going to go drink beer. Everybody knows what it's all about, and the tourism has been pretty incredible. So,
well, I'm disappointed, number one, that you said that the mayor was visited, and then you had a pregnant pause, and I thought you were going to be like, from 3 ghosts. The 3 ghosts of mushroom trips past, like at one ghost, he's showing him his past where he was a teenager, and then a present ghost where he's just, vomiting in a bush but loving it. Yeah, that's fucking crazy. Well, also, Amsterdam was is it just me, or do you think that the guy coming from Amsterdam, the mayor of Amsterdam, is there talking him out of legalizing mushrooms because he doesn't want to fucking lose the tourism from people going to Amsterdam? It's a drug capital. Does anybody see a nefarious second motive here that this guy might have?
Yeah. Well, that's a really good point. I don't think there's anything wrong with that kind of speculation. I think that's probably spot on because our population growth has been through the roof since Amendment 64 passed. It was already going up as it was, but the climate is beautiful here. We have beer, we have mountains, and then we have legal weed. So people want to be here. It's the place to be. The shitty thing is that it's turning awfully blue really quick. Yeah. And part of my other activism is gun rights. And we've just been fighting this massive wave of Democrats trying to pass. Well, they did pass the red flag bill, which was really horrible. Yeah. And so now you have these rural areas versus these urban areas, and everybody feels like Denver and Boulder have kind of.
Now, and just to clarify, when you talk about the red flag laws, you're talking about this is the law where you can basically flag somebody that you think is suspicious or dangerous, and then they get checked out and they make you have to go with their firearm, right?
Yep. In Colorado passed the worst one in the nation by far. Because a petitioner can petition to have your firearms taken away out of state, and they only need to be, it says you need to be a family member, but here's how loose the family member can be. It can be a girl or a guy that you dated within the last 6 months and you resided.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I am not kidding.
About I can imagine right now, Mike, do you own a gun?
I don't, but I've shot guns. I like guns, and my brother has a lot of guns.
I was gonna say, well, you probably don't have a gun right now because somebody you dated before has already reported you. A former girlfriend reported you taking away the gun.
That's highly likely. Yeah.
Speaking of highly, are you eating mushrooms right now?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was libertarians in living rooms eating mushrooms. So
I'm proud of you, man. Lance, Lance just came for work, so he's probably at this point fairly straight, but no, it's insane. This is one of the things that just boggles your mind that a law like that can pass where they're like, anybody you've dated, the sheer spite. People do far crazier things. If you can easily look at people getting swatted for playing video games against, teenagers, and they get pissed off because you killed them too many times. They call a SWAT team to your house and you get shot to death. You don't think that somebody you dated for a year and then dumped on his or her ass out of the blue isn't going to be like, guess what, bitch? I'm going to take your fucking guns away.
Everybody has dated a crazy bitch, right? Sorry, that's the problem with it. I have an ex-wife, and she's insane.
Yeah,
she's
imagine leaving a hunk like you.
Thankfully, she's very pro Second Amendment. I don't think she would do that.
Yeah.
But there's other people who aren't as fortunate as that, and that's been the issue. I actually went down and spoke at the last Senate committee hearing. A bunch of libertarians and Republicans went down and spoke about it. And it only passed by 1 vote. We think we almost defeated the whole thing. And then the backlash has been actually really incredible. So over half of the counties in Colorado have declared themselves as Second Amendment sanctuary counties. Nice. So that they won't enforce the red flag law because what happens is you have to send a SWAT team into the house to go get all of the guns. And the cost to do that, to send a SWAT team, is $10,000 at a time. So what these local police departments are claiming is that it's a hardship. And it really is a hardship. They don't have the storage, and they're already underfunded as it is. So they're saying
I reject that premise that any police department is underfunded. Just putting that out. Put that there right now.
They'll say that. Yeah.
Well, they would sell some of their Humvees, right?
I thought they were going to say that it's like oh, we need far more money. It's like a fundraising tool for them to use these SWAT teams and then bill the taxpayers back. But anyway, good.
Yeah. So actually, and last night we actually went down. We caught wind of Adams County, or not Commerce City, which is in Adams County. Their city council was going to pass a resolution for Commerce City to be a Second Amendment sanctuary city. So Leslie Hollywood of founder of Rally for Our Rights, shout out to her. She's been awesome. Me and her and a bunch of other members from Rally for Our Rights went down there and spoke impromptu, and we outnumbered Moms Demand Action, who are just our arch nemesis. They're just horrible. They're Bloomberg whores is what they really are. They're awful. And so we outnumbered them about 12-3. And then they passed it 5-2. So we are getting like small victories to happen. And what I really love about the whole thing is that as a libertarian, I really want secession to happen in America. I would love it if we just started breaking apart, because that's the best way to get down to a minimal government. Yep. And I think this is the way this is one of the ways it's going to happen. Even all we're doing is piggybacking off of the Democrats and their sanctuary cities for illegal immigrants.
Yeah, and I do like that. I kind of like that pivot. I have to say, from a trolling perspective, Trump, I liked what he was doing when he first came into office. Now I've grown very quickly apart from him, and now I hate more of what he does. But I have to say, from a trolling perspective, the fact that he was like, they had like the immigrant sanctuary cities, and he's like, all right, we're going to send you all our immigrants. And they're like, no. It was fucking hilarious. So Lance, you're involved with the Libertarian Party here. So you're making outreach specifically. But Mike, you're just hanging loose, doing your thing, enjoying psychedelics and talking to people, man, on the street. So I'm wondering, what have you seen? Do you even have to leave your house? Do you have to go out of state to find anybody for your podcast, or can you just walk down the street now and talk to anybody? And they're like, yeah, come on, talk.
Yeah, I mean, it's I've been getting a lot of guests, almost too many to handle. I need to kind of take a break, but actually, it's been great. And I love doing it very much. But I feel very passionately about these things that we're talking about here. Cannabis, psilocybin, guns. I really think that for me, I can get all this stuff in New York where I lived. It's not a problem. You know what I mean? This is something that a lot of people, and mainly Democrats, don't understand, is that if you want something, you can get it. Anybody can get it. This is what black markets are. But I moved to Colorado because I think Colorado represents freedom. It represents people. The people have the right to petition the government to change laws. I mean, first of all, I think democracy sucks, but it's I moved here because of the freedom, nature and all that stuff. So it really, and with psilocybin specifically, just to kind of change a little bit from the gun talk, but I can get back to that. They talk about set and setting a lot with psychedelics, being in the mindset and being in the right setting, which is very important. And I think that even that I can get psilocybin mushrooms in New York, there's still that kind of like little tinge of fear in the back of my mind that maybe a SWAT team will
whole experience.
Yeah, maybe it'll, I could go. So here it's like, okay, cool. I can go to the cannabis shop and buy, weed like an adult. I can put on a pair of pants, walk to the cannabis shop,
if it's a weekday.
Yeah. And that's just really, that's really the biggest thing that I stand for is freedom and cognitive liberty, the right for people to own their own consciousness and own themselves. And I like to talk to people like that on my podcast and talking about the core of freedom. Yeah.
I like that. I mean, and cognitive liberty is something that I want to get into a little bit later, because I sent you guys some other stories. We're talking about first and foremost, psilocybin and the legalization of that and the different effects of it. But also I want to talk about cognitive liberty, because I like that concept. I like the phrase. I like the whole idea of it, of owning your mind and owning, everything you do with that mind and your consciousness, because I think that cognitive liberty is a phrase that should echo more thoroughly throughout culture right now, especially from a libertarian perspective, like trying to engage with people, talk with them, win converts to our side and our way of thinking of freedom. The first thing is breaking people's mindsets and the way that they're raised, the way that they see the world, where they have these blinders on. So I want to circle back with cognitive liberty when these later stories we talk about John Cleese and Meryl Streep. But I had on a while ago My buddy Matt Neal, who worked with MAPS, you guys are probably familiar with them, and I'm blanking on the association's name, but basically, they advocate for alternative treatments for all sorts of medical issues, ranging from MDMA to psilocybin to ketamine, and you were just the thing that is so frustrating is we're finally seeing the breakthrough with marijuana, right? Where they say this is not a danger, it is a benefit. The FDA even says psilocybin is a benefit for treating depression, same thing with ketamine.
Yeah,
so
breakthrough therapy. Yeah,
breakthrough therapy, and you go, okay, you've got all the science on the side now. You've got culturally people won over by it. And I also want to talk about that and see what you guys think. Do you think that adoption in mainstream film and entertainment and people being more open about doing psychedelics has helped make this possible? But it just drives me nuts when you see that, like this Mayor Hancock driving
Hancock's
Herbie Hancock.
I think it's Hancock. Yeah,
Hancock. Good old Hancock. But you see this guy fighting against a tooth and nail. So, I mean, whoever wants to speak, this is LALDL, so I'm not going to pick one of you, but pick one of those things I just said and talk about it. And dead silence. This is why I'm the best host on the
podcast. Mike, you live in Denver, right?
Yes, I do.
I feel like you have a more on the pulse take on that.
What was the question, Brian?
There were many. I think it's more of a long statement. Okay, now I'll lay it out in more of a question format. Okay, do you think, number one, entertainment has had any impact? Like you look at movies like Neighbors, and I think Neighbors 2, and basically every Seth Rogen movie he's made in the last 20 years has some sort of mushrooms in it. But it just seems that it's become more of a thing that's accepted in popular culture. It's thrown out there as it's not a bad thing to do. We accept it and we do it. Combined with the science agreeing with it, do you think that has made it possible to get to this point? And what do you think of these assholes who still oppose it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think definitely more people coming out of the psychedelic closet, as they say, just coming out and talking about it helps. It definitely helps culture. It definitely helps having it in the culture, having it in movies, in music. There's the festival scene has grown over the last decade. So that has really helped as well. And, a lot of people, take these things and they go, oh my God, I had so much fun. Majority of people aren't, researchers at Johns Hopkins or, at institutes like the Beckley Foundation or these other places that are doing scientific studies, MAPS, Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, doing the MDMA treatment for veterans. Most people aren't doing that. Most people are just getting something and taking it and going to a concert or a show and having fun. And that's the way it's been for a long time. So I think people kind of, now that I think the internet has connected everybody and we're able to kind of see everything, and people can find this information and they can realize it's not really that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. So I think it helps a lot.
Let me ask you this. There's something. So I'll be honest, I did mushrooms back in college, right? And just did them once or twice. Then I did them in Vegas once. I evened that out with a different drug, which I probably shouldn't have done. But it's because I was scared at the time. I was like, I'm in Vegas. I don't know where my surroundings. I don't want to trip too hard. I don't know. And I had this different conception of what mushrooms did and are. And then I did them more recently with my sister in New York, because you can easily get them, as you said.
Right.
And I had a wonderful time, and came to have a much better perception of what mushrooms are and the effects they have. Do you think that the remaining people that object to these kind of things, do you guys feel that this is because there's a lack of education? And obviously the government and all these propaganda videos made in the 70s of people jumping out fucking windows and shit don't help. But do you think that a lack of education as to what the actual impact of mushrooms is, what the actual feeling your body, the psychic impact, do you think this has a lot to do with the resistance that you see?
Real quick, I want to say something, and then I think Lance wants to say something. So I think that, we brought up this thing about the mayor of Amsterdam talking to the mayor here in Denver, and they had psilocybin mushrooms were legal there, but now you can only get truffles. So you can't actually get mushrooms. They made it illegal because a teenage girl killed herself. I think she jumped out of a window or something.
Of course, one girl, right?
So exactly. So this is the fear, I remember reading this great book. I forget what the name of it was, but they were talking about the movie Jaws, how the movie Jaws inspired, it created.
Oh, I know the book. It's Jaws, the book written about the movie Jaws.
No.
Jaws the novel. Jaws the novel, Mike.
Jaws
how many mushrooms have you eaten? It's Jaws the novel.
Jaws the novel, far better than the movie, by the way.
Sorry,
Richard Dreyfuss narrates on audiobook. It's fantastic. They were talking about how this movie created a lot of fear but realistically, shark attacks don't happen that frequently, but the movie created so much fear that people weren't going in the ocean, all this stuff. So one person, dies. It's like everybody else has to be held responsible for one shitty person's decision. Like Bill Hicks says, hey, we're just thinning out the herd. If you kill yourself, listen to a rock album or taking that's your fault. I don't know what to tell you, but we shouldn't be punished for that.
Yeah.
I think it's two different types of people, right? So there's the politicians who want to get reelected. And Mayor Hancock saw, I think it was in Initiative 300. Was it the one where the homeless, we were going to decriminalize, you could just camp anywhere you wanted in Denver?
Yeah, the camping ban. Was
and that was at the same, that was during this last May election alongside 301, which was the decriminalization of psilocybin. That 300 failed it was 75% to 25%. So to me, that showed that there was, even though Denver is very blue, there's still just a natural conservativeness there, right? I mean, there's still a lot of families there, and we don't want to see
property rights. Yeah, you don't want people camping in front of your fucking house. I mean, you see it in L.A. happening all over the place,
right? And they see what's going on in L.A. and they see what's going on in San Francisco, especially with the poop patrol, because the election before that. They said you won't get you'll just get a ticket if you piss or shit on Denver, right?
Yeah. So
they see the San Franciscoization of Denver. So I think the politicians, if I had to guess, it would be Hancock saying, "Okay, I'm not going to get reelected if I come out and say I'm for psilocybin mushrooms." He could flip. Politicians are horrible people.
True.
And then there's the citizen side of it. So because of the crowds I hang out with all the gun rights stuff, well, a lot of them are Republicans, and they're very, very socially conservative. So when 301 passed, I got a lot of flack from my Republican friends because they just said, look, you're just going to Californicate Colorado further by doing this. And they actually do have a good point with that, because we do have a lot of blue voters coming in because of that. They're not yellow voters. Like, I wish they were libertarians, where they go, it's all about your personal rights.
Yeah.
Stay along the state out of it. But
I wonder though if it's purely based upon people that are like, okay, we're drug travelers, right? I think a lot of me thinks that's also just because the real blue states around, and Denver's not so far from LA. Like Sandy and my wife and I have talked about, okay, before we bought a house here, maybe we should move to Denver. And it was because it was affordable, reasonably affordable, beautiful, and not too far. And I think that a lot of people might be looking at it that way too. It's just the affordability of, as we look at our states implode, people are moving there that are just ultra progressive assholes because it's affordable and it's close. Like Oregon, same thing. Washington, same thing. So I wonder if that's a part of it as well. I mean, the problem still exists where your state's going down the shitter.
Exactly. So I think that's the in my role. I think that's the resistance to it. All day long. It's just, and I kind of feel that way. After 64, I mean, I'm telling you, the state, the first time that this state has flipped back to blue has been since 1936. It was the last time all three branches were blue, and I mean the whole thing is completely blue. And they ran as many things as they could through. We almost had the rent control ban unbanned, which is
that would be beautiful.
As a developer, I was about to puke. And my wife is a real estate guru, and she owns a bunch of properties. And I was like, "Do you see?" And she's kind of an independent lady. She didn't get too much into politics, but I'm trying to steer her over to the right side of things and be like, "Look, we gotta clap back at these."
Yeah, that's one of the that's one of the best ways to win somebody over, especially in real estate. I mean, God, you as a developer, man, I'm not a developer, of course, but having read numerous pieces and argued the point here in LA till my lungs are blue. I'm blue in the face. Yeah, it's just one of the stupidest things. The rent control concept is idiotic. It's proven not to work and fail everywhere it's been tried again and again and again. It's maddening. Absolutely maddening. Well, so let's just talk real quick because, people that listen to the show, they're a wide range. So they may not know some of the benefits of using psilocybin And we can talk a little bit about ketamine and MDMA too, if you're interested. But, some of the things that I know as far as ketamine is like I have a buddy who's a quadriplegic, helps him with all sorts of pain, helps him get around. And it's surprising because it's such a tranquilizer, but it just, I guess, puts you in that kind of deep state of relaxation. MDMA, amazing. It's like for treating depression. I've read about microdosing. I've read about macrodosing, where people are put under extreme amounts of MDMA and have these amazing breakthroughs with childhood trauma and all this other shit. But I don't know that much about psilocybin and depression. So if anybody wants to educate me, I'm very curious to know.
Mike?
Sure, yeah. I mean, like you said before, the FDA granted psilocybin mushrooms breakthrough therapy status. Johns Hopkins University, New York University, Imperial College of London. These are very prestigious groups that are doing really amazing work studying the effects of psilocybin. So right there, it's that there is something. And I think the Johns Hopkins study, 80% of the participants said that it was the most profound experience they've ever had in their life. So I take psilocybin like a lot. And
during this podcast, for example.
Yeah, no, I'm not eating it right now. I'm just enjoying a nice beer and some almonds. But no, it's definitely microdosing. I think it was Albert Hoffman, the inventor of LSD, who said that it would have been prescribed like Adderall is prescribed had it not been so harshly scheduled. So, just like we see with the cannabis plant, with hemp, and with all these things, with psilocybin, with mushrooms, with with a lot of these substances, there's so many uses for them to be had, whether it's anxiety or PTSD. There's a great group here in Denver called the Veterans for Natural Rights, led by Matt Kale and a couple other people, and they really are advocates for these natural plants and fungi that grow from the ground. So it's like it's got the help they need to overcome their PTSD. For me personally, what it really does is it brings you into such a place of beauty and awe that can't be like denied. It also makes you confront yourself, your truest self, at your deepest level, where you can't hide anything from that. So if you're not into doing that, I would recommend not doing it. I remember I had Thaddeus Russell on my podcast, and he was like, yeah, I tried mushrooms once, scared the hell out of me. Really didn't like it. I was like, yeah, man, you got some demons. I don't know, that it can, if you're unwilling to look at yourself deeply, then you probably won't get too much healing from it. But it has a very profound effect on a lot of people. It creates neurogenesis in the brains. It creates new neural pathways. Basically what happens is,
that's interesting.
There's this thing in the brain called the default mode network. And the default mode network essentially is like the manager of the brain. It kind of is like, okay, you go here, everybody's doing their job efficiently and effectively. When you take psilocybin, that default mode network quiets down. So there's different parts of the brain that are able to talk to each other. New neural pathways are connecting, and that's why people sometimes say that they can see sounds or hear colors, anesthesia, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in that state all the time, but this was something that was given to Stanford scientists, researchers, and engineers before it was criminalized in 1964, and to solve complex problems. And they did. I mean, so it's great for creativity, depression, PTSD, anxiety, a whole host of things.
Oh, totally. Well, it's like a buddy of mine. It's interesting because the neural pathway things and letting different ideas communicate, different areas of the brain communicate, sparking creativity. So a buddy of mine, Jake Weissman, who's on the podcast, drew varying reviews because he's very left, but at least the guy that's willing to talk and have a discussion. But he created that show Corporate that's on Comedy Central, and I had him on the show, and he was saying that while they were doing the writing, he's like, yeah, we did a lot of mushrooms, man. Because it just really, I mean, seriously, it's like, I was like, what? Because I can't imagine writing on it, but it's because of what you're saying. Like it opened up the pathways. It allowed them to see different ways, different way of thinking, allowed them to address, because corporate, a lot of it is also kind of dealing with the depression of everyday life and, identifying who you are, identifying as a corporate shill or not. And, so it's like, it really was fascinating to hear though, doing that writing process. And from a comedy standpoint, I think,
oh my God, yeah.
If you could just unlock enormous potential with all comedians. I got to start doing mushrooms on the regular. And I actually plan to, by the way.
Yeah. All great art is in some way or other is affected by some sort of altered state of consciousness, I think. Steve Jobs said taking LSD was one of the most important things he's ever done in his life. The guy, Francis Crick, who discovered the DNA double helix, said that he did it with LSD. So, and mushrooms played a huge role in opening up a lot of people's minds as well. I don't have any specific examples at this particular moment, but
all right.
Psychedelics in general are very helpful in unlocking a lot of creativity in people. Yeah,
I can sit. Go ahead, Lance.
Didn't Steve Jobs actually ask multiple people when he interviewed them if they had done LSD? And then if they said no, he would just not hire them?
I think so.
That's such an unfair question. I guess it's an honesty test, right? Because they're like, no, Steve.
You couldn't do that now in the Me Too era, but whatever.
Yeah, right. No shit. He's like, oh, you do LSD? All right, baby, let's go party. It's like the fucking Animal House smoking pot with the kids. They're gonna fuck in the bathtub later. Lance, by the way, how many of those little baby beers have you drank?
Oh, I'm on my fourth. You just saw me drink one. Now I'm on my fourth, actually.
All right,
I'm
Lance.
proud of you. I'm proud of you. I wanted to check in on that. All right, tell you what, guys. Let's finish up the conversation about psilocybin, and then I'm going to take a quick break, wherein I'm going to pour myself more martini. Then we're going to come back and delve into the cognitive liberty conversation and some current event stuff. So, anything more to add to this conversation about what's going on, the future of decriminalization? Do you think mushrooms are going to be a step towards kind of like the dominoes falling in regards to legalization of mushrooms, or legalization of other hard drugs? Like we look to Portugal, for example, who's seen their crime rate, their overdose rate drop, and they legalized everything. It's become a fucking utopia compared to the way it used to be. So thoughts, gentlemen?
Well, the Oakland City Council is taking it up right now. That they might decriminalize psilocybin, right? So I think it's spreading. It's sort of the same reflection of Amendment 64 in Colorado, when Colorado passed it first and legalized marijuana, and then Oregon was right behind us. And then in the next election cycle, a bunch of other states did it. North Dakota quietly decriminalized this last year, just in a
interesting.
Yeah, in the legislative ballot. Or not a ballot, sorry, legislative action for the state house, and then it eventually got signed by the governor. They basically, you can have a half ounce or less, which my dad is very happy about. If not, he'll just get a ticket, and he won't get a misdemeanor or a felony or anything like that.
Yeah,
I hope it's spreading, man. It would be great, because I'll tell you what, one of the other complaints is that people are tired of people moving to Colorado. And that's one of the results is we legalize first, and it's like, okay, everybody else, you guys also need to get your shit together, because we got enough Californians here. I'm talking to you, Brian. That's enough.
I'm not coming to you, scumbag. I bought a house here, which is already almost worth $1 million because the real estate market here is insane. Don't ask what I paid for it. Way too much.
The good thing about that is that the members of the psilocybin initiative here in Denver are actually working together with the Decriminalized California people who have their own initiative. And the Decriminalized Oakland people I just had on my podcast, Larry and Carlos, it's decriminalized nature. So it's going to be all natural products like ayahuasca, iboga,
I love that.
And psilocybin, yeah.
Love that, because it's like anything you can goddamn grow should not be illegal. Even obviously, I think everything should be legal, but you know, it's like if you grow fucking coca leaves in your house and you want to do whatever the fuck you want to do with your coca leaves, you grow out of the ground. That's your business. It grew. It's natural.
It's very good for high elevation, by the way. I hiked the Andes Mountains last year, and all I did was chew on coca leaves the whole way up. Had no problem. 17,000 feet up. Did
you grow them, or were you able to order them?
Oh, no. I got them in the Andes. I was in Peru.
Oh, in the Andes. Sorry. I already spilled half martini. I had a buddy who lives in Pennsylvania who, and obviously I won't say his name on a public broadcast, but he was able to obtain coca leaves, actual leaves, and made his own whatever you want to do with coca leaves. Yeah. So I was curious. I'm like, can you buy them in bulk somehow? You know, I don't know. Maybe he used the dark web to do it. Maybe before Ross Ulbricht went to jail, sadly, he was able to hook them up. I just don't know.
Yeah, that could be. I had a buddy, I won't name who his name is, but in North Dakota, he bought the root that is the key to make DMT. And he made some really dank DMT. It was fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that happy note, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after this quick message, and we'll be back with Mike Brancatelli and Lance Cayko, guys. So stay tuned. Be back in 30.
We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. Those epic words from Archilochus can sum up your ability to succeed or fail in business. I want to recommend Conversation Mat Time to our listeners as a way to hone your one-on-one conversation skills in a role-playing session that can help take you to the next level. During 25-minute sessions, you'll work through the best way to approach that raise, that interview, or that relationship with a practiced professional that will provide the confidence and experience you need to get paid what you're worth or take that interpersonal risk you've never been able to conquer. Just like in jiu-jitsu, the difference between a novice and a black belt is mat time. Train to win. Visit conversationmattime.com and take advantage of a free 15-minute consultation just for listeners of this show.
All right, we are back with Electric Libertyland, episode number 127. I am joined here once again with Lance Cayko. He is out in Denver. Not in Denver. You're not in Denver. You're in Colorado. Are you in Boulder?
Boulder County.
Boulder County. He is the heading up the communications for the Libertarian Party of Denver, and a man who, as I said earlier, was very involved with not only Second Amendment rights movement. Sorry, I've had a martini at this point. Second Amendment rights, and also the legalization of psilocybin. For now, we'll see how it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And also, of course, I'm joined with Mike Brancatelli of the Mikeadelic podcast. So, gentlemen, we are back. People missed us for that 30 seconds, but we are here now. And as I said earlier, I want to get into a little bit of the idea of cognitive liberty, because I think this is something that we as libertarians or voluntarists, however you want to view yourself, need to talk more about this and need to view this as a way forward and a way to attack both the right and the left, mostly the left. I find they're far more difficult to win over. But I just think of just this basic psychedelics today definition. The right to mental self-determination, freedom of an individual to control his or her own mental processes, cognition, and consciousness, and basically, essentially, a conduit to the freedom of thought. And we see such unbelievable resistance today. And when we try to talk to anybody about anything, even if all of the facts are on your side, even if all of the statistics are on your side, even if just the basic moral principles are on your side, it's very difficult to reach certain people. And this concept of cognitive liberty, allowing people or finding ways to free up people's consciousness, seems to be the key to opening up any number of opportunities for forwarding the libertarian way of thinking. So, you're not prepared for this. With that in mind, what do you think is the best way to do that?
I think you got to find people that have got fucked over by the state. It's that simple to me. And you have to be there for when they're ready to turn on the liberty, right? I don't think you can go up and yell taxation is theft at somebody.
I agree completely.
I love doing it. I wear my shirt all the time, and I get into great conversations with people, and I get them to think and everything like that. But at the end of the day, they have to be screwed over by the state. I brought up my wife earlier in the podcast with rent control, and that was one thing that really turned her on to that. And we're considering being big donors at the end of the year for Young Americans for Liberty, because they go and knock doors and they get libertarian Republicans elected. So, that's a little dirty, but at the end of the day, that's better than, a dirty Democratic socialist.
Yeah, that's true. Mike, what do you think?
I mean, yeah. We live in America. I think everybody should be a libertarian. That was the principles that we were founded on. The states, one of the reasons why I moved to Colorado is because, the state laws here are a little bit different, right? So the states were supposed to be these individual things, and the government was just like hired by the states to be like a third party arbitrator. Obviously, this has grown into such a massive global leviathan. It's consuming everybody's, everything. I mean, it's consuming everybody's minds. Just the sheer amount of propaganda that is on repetition on cable news, where even if you don't watch cable news, it's on somewhere at your office or a doctor's office or wherever you go. Everybody's paying attention to what's the latest thing, what's going on. I mean, it's bullshit. The thing that matters the most is you. what's going on in your head, your mind, your body, your soul. And that's really one of the most important things, and nobody should have the right to legislate that or mediate that or interpret that for you. And, I think that really getting into face-to-face human connections with people, and just asking people questions. Like Lance said, everybody's been fucked by the state. Everybody that's breathing in America, or the world for that matter, has been fucked over by the state. For the last 10,000 years, people have been getting fucked over by the state in one way or another. So it's just about finding what that is and then asking people questions. What do you think about that? What about this? What about that? Well, if you're for this, would you be for that? And just seeing where that conversation goes. You might not change someone's mind in the first try, but maybe the seventh try, maybe the eighth try, maybe they hear it from somebody else in a different way and they're able to relate to it. So that's what I think. Just keep having conversations with people.
Time out. Get out of here, Lance's wife. She didn't hear me. Oh, there you go.
You know what I've been thinking about doing? This blows my mind about a lot of our clients. So I have in addition to doing real estate development, then I'm also an architect. We have an architecture firm, and we so all of my clients have to go through the planning and zoning process, the building department process.
Oh, that's a good way to win them over.
Oh my God, the historical landmark bullshit process, right? Where somebody's got to replace the shingles exactly like this. And I can all tell that at certain points they hate the government. I've been thinking about buying a ton of copies of For a New Liberty by Murray Rothbard.
Yes.
And then giving them as a gift at the end.
Yeah, like a thank you gift.
Yeah, and as a thank you gift, and saying, hey, if you felt frustration in going through the building process, here's a book that might enlighten you a little bit more. Take it or leave it. It's just a gift to you. And red pilling them, or yellow pilling them in that way.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. Well, it's like, the reason I wanted to continue the conversation about psychedelics through this cognitive liberty concept is because any way we can jumpstart people's minds into looking at the world in a different way. We talk about the ways mushrooms can interact with people's brains to open up new conduits, to let them see and create new neural pathways. That's what I think we need. And again, I asked you guys for concrete examples, which is what you gave me, because knowing that I was going to go off topic and talk about this bullshit. So, but when you think about the legalization of these drugs, if you have people give an opportunity to open up your mind, look at the world in a different way. Okay, so now you're able to take these psychedelics. Maybe you start to question what you're being fed. Because we see the government's feeding you propaganda, the media is feeding you propaganda. We live in a world, as Mike was talking about, where you see people not interact as well on an interpersonal level. And, we all see this. You see, if you say Trump in a room, it's like a fucking knife fight breaks out. And, I just want people to start breaking out of that shell and start looking at the world in a new and different way. And I feel like you need something, I think we're past the point of no return where it's hard to do that with a simple conversation. The development thing and the permitting thing is a great way to do it, by the way, in a real world situation, because holy shit. Like, I have one client that's a libertarian who has gone through 2 years of hell, paying rent, renovating a building, going through, and in LA, it's worse than you could ever imagine. It's got to be an environmental impact. And it's like fucking 2 years of permits and bullshit. And you wait a month between every fucking appointment. So that's a great way to do it. But in general, that's why I just think if we can just get this shit passed where people actually start contemplating their own existence, who they are, what is influencing their lives, and start to question what the role government plays, what role outside influences play, who they are and who they should be talking to. It's hard to me to think of anything more indicative of finding personal liberty than the legalization of all these drugs.
Well, that's a great point you bring up, Brian, because I had this guy, Lorenzo Haggerty, who hosts this show, The Psychedelic Salon, and it's a podcast, and he's 76 years old. He said on the show he was a Republican Christian Texas lawyer. Damn. So he never
I saw a movie made with him with Kevin Costner on Netflix recently. He shot a guy in the head.
Right. Well, he took MDMA for the first time when he was 42. MDMA in the 1980s was legal. He told me he never would have taken it if it wasn't legal, right? So I think the importance of getting these things ground is to give people the choice. Say, hey, look, you guys, everybody's free to choose. And, human beings have been partaking in ceremonial and ritualistic things, whether it be religion like church or synagogue or something like that, meditation, spirituality, ayahuasca circle, whatever it is. We need something that gets us out of the daily doldrums of the mechanical world that we all have to exist in so we can pay our rent and, eat food and things like that. We need something like that. And I think that, to me, I think psychedelics can be that thing, as long as we can respect the individual's rights to choose for themselves what they think is best for them.
And not only that, man, but it's a shared experience. I mean, you're talking about ayahuasca and these like ritual things, right? So it's a shared experience.
Like church too.
Yeah, it is like church. It's a shared communal experience, but also when you're on that kind of mental trip, you have something that's always like a shared reference that now you go forward, you feel connected and bonded to people in a different way. And, I remember I was talking to a buddy of mine. I do public relations for a living. I don't know if you guys know that. He was working over at PAX, which is one of the biggest weed pod manufacturers, vape weed pods. And I told him I had this idea for a concept. I said, I think we should really try to push to break through and separate from just being like, it's something that podheads do and whatever. I said, the concept I think you should really push through there. And I didn't end up getting the account because the guy was an idiot who ran the company. But the concept was this communal effort of like, okay, what brings people together from different cultures? Right now we got fucking terrorists in the Middle East and people that hate us in the Middle East, and we got us over here and the fucking Christians. People coming together to smoke, right? And even though it's looked down upon, I said, sharing, coming together, sharing a hookah, sharing a pack, sharing a whatever, getting together, sitting down, communing on sharing that experience. And I think that that's something that can bond people together, because you can put your differences aside. You can have a discussion because it's in the context of a relaxed, shared experience. And it's the same thing with like using these drugs, is you have that moving forward. You have more of an opportunity to connect and share and move on forward together, rather than, okay, this is illegal, you're a bad person, I'm a good person because I didn't do it, because this delineating line which the fucking government set, which is just arbitrary bullshit.
Yeah, this is what everybody wants. Everybody wants connection and community. Yeah. Everybody wants to be a part of something with like-minded, like-hearted people. Robert Nisbet wrote a great book from 1954, a classic conservative piece, but really great for anybody to read, called The Quest for Community. And he talks about one of the main points of the book is that government intervention and government overreach has been so big, government's gotten so big that it doesn't incentivize people to voluntarily associate with each other as much, because they just think, the government will do it. Yep. Really, people want to get together. They want to do these things. People want to get together and go shooting. It's fun. It's like, why, like we want to have guns. Like, let's do it. We should be able to protect ourselves. These things should happen. But obviously we have this Leviathan state that wants to, stomp on everybody's individuality and make everybody conform to this fucking blob of crap.
I just hope that the more we decriminalize, the more politicians get stoned, and go on trips. Honestly,
literally or figuratively?
Literally, because then
with bricks.
What's that?
With bricks and.
but go on their own trips, because then what if it opens their eyes and they start and they actually have some self-reflection and go like, wow, I'm a piece of shit. Maybe I should stop being a piece of shit. And
that would be beautiful. I doubt that'll happen though, because I think they know that they're already pieces of shit. I'm convinced that 90%, maybe a few of them don't, but I think most of them already know their shit. Although I do like the idea of like, I like Rand Paul went on the Daily Show and drank whiskey, getting drunk one time, which is fun to watch. More politicians being open about like, hey, these are my enjoyments. These are my vices, quote unquote vices. I mean, be a human being. Don't be a fucking robot.
Oh my God,
in public, and then jerking off a male prostitute in the bathroom. Right. Do it in
We're
public.
talking to you, Lindsey Graham.
Yeah,
I'm talking about you. No, Brian, you're absolutely right. And this is this really deep-seated, like puritanical, strain that's in American culture. Which
and I will say we applaud the founding fathers for making this great country, but they were puritanical motherfuckers. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, look, everybody's flawed, you know. People have great ideas, you know. So they own people, whatever, you know. No, I mean,
but they didn't like it.
No, they didn't like. They hated it, you know. But no, I mean, look, everybody's flawed, and everybody's a victim of their time, or maybe victim's not the word, but everybody has to conform to the conditions of their time. You know, it's really, really difficult, as you all know, being a libertarian, going against social norms and more, you know, it's like every time someone brings something up, you have to say, well, actually, you know, and that's, you know, people move away from you at parties sometimes, you know, but yeah, it's a big important thing. And I think that, you know, I think I lost track of what I was saying, but this IPA is treating me well.
All right, man. This is it's an LALDL episode. The whole point is to go off track and interrupt each other.
Nice. All right, great.
But you know, it's a good segue into going into some of these other topics. So, you know, we're talking about cognitive liberty. We're talking about you know, just moving on and people kind of admitting and seeing life in a different way. So, first things first, shocked to see this because Meryl Streep is one of the most progressive, outspoken, annoying people in Hollywood. But very recently, she slammed, quote unquote, the term toxic masculinity and said women can be pretty fucking toxic. And this was in the context of a show she was doing, or I guess a panel about a new show about it was all women. I think it's coming out on Netflix or HBO. I don't know. You know, chick shows. But some guy, you know, a man in the crowd asked her a question and said, I really like the show. And she said, oh, this is great, you know, and used that as a springboard to say toxic masculinity is not a thing we should harp on. And I wonder, is this an example of cognitive liberty from Meryl Streep, who to this point I thought was a brainwashed idiot? And or is it just that she's always thought this way, but we're talking about bowing to social norms? Has she, to this point, bowed to social norms because she's in Hollywood? She's a lot of money to lose by going against the progressive machine. And is she now to the point where she's like, I've got to be 65 years old. I have more money than fucking God. I don't give a flying fuck anymore. Here's what I really think. So where do you guys fall on that? I'll go Lance first. I'll point downward on my screen. Lance.
Oh man, that's a good question. I think when you become, is she 65?
I made that up. She's got to. Ask your wife.
Say she is.
She's got to be. Ask your wife.
When you become 65, yeah, you can finally say what's on your mind, regardless of whatever, and you have all the money in the world. That's it. Cut and dry for me. She's just old enough. She's rich enough. She can finally say what's on her mind.
So you think that all this time, you think that she has been a little bit more along the lines of like, because I wonder how many people in Hollywood, you know, there's a lot of very progressive assholes here who really believe this shit full bore. But I do wonder how many people are like, you know, the Kurt Russells of the world, my personal hero, Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing, Mike. We're going to watch that together sometime.
Yes.
Yeah, but I wonder how many people just are hiding this shit down deep, and they are like, I have too much to lose.
Yeah. There's got to be a lot. Do you listen to Shapiro? Do you listen to Ben Shapiro at all? I listen to Ben Shapiro daily.
I can't. His voice is too fucking annoying.
I like him. He's good.
Facts don't care.
Let me tell you something. What's the doctor? And let me tell you about this. People are anti-Semitic in general. They hate people. And I can't deal with it.
I'm sorry, sir. You interrupted me, sir. You interrupted me. So if you want me to talk, I'll talk in a minute. But I'm going to school you about some facts.
I want to get him on an LALDL just to see his head explode.
I like his ideas. He wrote a book about, I think, Hollywood and TV and things like this. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So go ahead, Lance.
He's got some.
He claims there's a ton of closet, you know, conservative liberty type of people that just they just conform because they need everybody's got to eat. What are they going to do? You know, they like
I believe it, man. I mean, I think there's a lot. Well, number one, there's a lot of nepotism. So a lot of the people that are ultra progressive asshats you see out here are just children of Hollywood nepotism that have been born and raised here. And then the only reason they're famous is because they're Steven Spielberg's niece. You know, like Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah. They're puppets.
They're puppets. But there are enough people that come from, you know, they're like hometown stock, you know. They're born and bred in West Kentucky, and they come out here to find. Yeah, right. I mean, there's people out here, so I do wonder if that's the case. And Mike, you agree that is she hidden this away, or has she just been woken?
I can't believe I'm defending Meryl Streep, but you know, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, if that's what she said, I mean, yeah, I agree with her. Sure. I mean, of course you know, women have somehow convinced everybody that they're a minority.
Yeah, which they are not, definitively not.
depressed and
Yeah.
this whole thing,
Yeah.
and everybody just agrees with him because they want to fuck him. I mean, that's what,
It's true.
that's what Bill Burr has said. So that's not my original thought, but I mean, come on, like that's the truth. And then guys that will deny that will be like, that we call it. What do we call it? The white knighting, right? It's like,
oh yeah.
Oh no. Oh, not me. I never heard such talk in my life. But yeah, I mean, toxic humanity, man. I mean, everybody's got whatever. I mean, I know the term toxic masculinity is a very weighted, thing, but everybody's got their flaws. Everybody's got their problems. So,
exactly right. I mean, it's like you look at toxic masculinity. I guess I can argue, look, Jersey Shore. I'll give that example of toxic masculinity. And I'm okay with that.
But the women on that show, too.
Toxic femininity, exactly.
It's actually just dumb Italian people.
Yeah.
We need I reject my own people.
No, exactly, man. It's just, there's certain people that are assholes. Actually, here's a perfect segue into the next topic. There's certain people that are in a culture, and it's not necessarily the person-on-person by basis, because we're talking about social norms, acting a certain way within a certain society or culture. There are certain cultures, and I do agree with what the next topic I'm going to talk about. Look, I will say definitively, there are some cultures that are better than other cultures. Full stop. There are some that are better, period. Just like anything else in fucking life, there's some ice cream flavors that I like better. Now, there's some things that are definitively better than others. I think that we can look at history and say some cultures have done more things than other cultures, and they've been better, let's say, than cultures that are for raping children on the norm. The Greeks did a lot of great things, but they're gone now. Anyway, I don't know. I'm off on a tangent.
Yeah, the ancient Greeks. Yeah.
The ancient Greeks did like to rape kids, but some cultures better than others. Things that we agree with more. And granted, we are symptoms of our own time, as Mike said earlier. We all live in our own time, so maybe things will change in general. But John Cleese, comedic royalty, one of my favorite people on the face of the earth. And actually, I've done comedy with his daughter several times, who's a very nice girl. But he agrees with the statement that some cultures are better than others. And he had a statement earlier that he doubled down on, basically saying that there's an issue with London. He said London is no longer full of Londoners, essentially saying that they had so much immigration, whether that be forced immigration or legal immigration or illegal immigration. I don't really know. But he said that when he walks through the streets of London, he no longer sees Londoners. He sees a different culture. And he's not trying to be racist here by saying it's white or black, but Londoners as a culture. So he got roundly criticized for this, as you would imagine, by the left. And he doubled down on it, which is why I love my man, John Cleese. And then he says, and I quote, I think, this is from his Twitter feed, I think it's legitimate to prefer one culture to another. For example, I prefer cultures that do not tolerate female genital mutilation. I'm sure he chose that culture specifically because he knows that the left can't come back at him for talking about female genital mutilation. But he's just saying, this will be considered racist. But, in general, he's just saying there is something to be said for a changing culture and the impact that does have on a society when that culture is renowned for doing good things. And, is it a problem, in your gentleman's opinion? Should we defend culture? Should we adopt a culture having influence? Or should we wholly accept that cultures are immaterial things, that they are like the tides, like the sands on the dunes, they are always changing, and you cannot pinpoint a culture into a certain thing?
I don't want to defend any. I just like whatever happened to freedom association, and then the opposite of that, freedom of disassociation. Like, why can't we freely, openly say, I don't want to associate with these people because they're horrible. Right. And then, therefore I'm going to live in, wherever I live in my gated community or stuff like that. I see no problem with that. I just think I'm so tired of the woke culture where we have to, everybody's got to be equal. There is no hierarchy. And that leads to socialism and then the communism. It's just Marxism just permeates everywhere right now, and I hate it. It
is prominent. Mikey Spots, as I called you earlier. I don't know what the spots refers to. Herpes.
I don't know how you know. I mean, I never disclosed that. I guess I just look like a herpy guy.
You were walking around your apartment before you knew the video was on.
Oh yeah,
before the pants came on, because you unlike a weekday, you had gone to the weed store down the block without pants on.
That's right. Yeah, and I had to put a soldering iron to my genital herpes. No, I don't have herpes.
Soldering iron in his sock. That's how Mike Brancatelli goes out.
Clean individual, folks. Here, I agree with John Cleese, and I think that look, I mean, people always make the argument that, oh, well, look, socialism works and inclusivity and all this stuff is great. I mean, just look at, the Nordic countries, right? Like they get along and they have all these social programs. Well, yeah, they're largely culturally and racially homogenous.
Exactly.
I mean, human beings are tribal people. Yes, we can learn how to get along with other people. I lived in New York City for 8 years. I got in a cab. The guy's driving Muslim. I go to the bodega. It's a Chinese guy there, whatever. Everybody has it's just free voluntary association. If you can respect people's choices for free voluntary association, develop whatever culture you want, but don't force something upon me. Don't force something upon anybody else. This is how human beings are. We like to be around people that look like us, that sound like us, that think like us, that feel that we feel. So that's just the way things are, and to try and make it otherwise is insane.
Well, this is why we need secession badly.
Yes.
Why we absolutely need decentralization and secession.
Yes.
And that's why I love what's happening with the Brexit movement.
Yes. Totally. Wait. Can I pause you right there?
Yeah.
Because I want to make another, not a counterpoint. I want to make another point to Mike's statement, and then I want to move on to Brexit and John fucking Elton. Elton John, not John Elton.
John Elton. That's your alter ego, right?
Yeah, that's me. That's me at the rest stops. No, so one quick thing. So we're talking about Sweden and voluntary association versus forced. Sweden, especially, you look at right now, there is a crisis in Sweden, like a huge crisis, because they had forced immigration where they brought in all of these different people. They have no-go zones where rapes and crimes are high. They have just an epidemic of rape. I mean, it is unbelievable. And of course, the media don't want to report on it because it's negative news about progressive ideals. But like you guys are saying, there is something to say. And I'm not saying that this is ideal, but like we were talking about earlier, shared cultural experience. When you have a society that is born and has gone through shared cultural norms, whether that be religion or psychedelics or going to the pub and fucking drinking, it doesn't matter what it is. You have shared experiences. You have shared norms. When you forcibly insert a population group into that number one does not assimilate or want to assimilate, and number two is it's done in such a fast fashion where it's almost impossible for them to assimilate. You've created an impossible situation from a human perspective. Impossible. And that's what's happening throughout the Icelandic nations. That's what's happening sometimes here, even in America, where, if it's not done organically, it's difficult for a culture to adjust. And you end up having two cultures go basically warring with each other. And the outcome of that is usually never good.
Huh. Almost seems like it's intentional, maybe.
I don't know. It does seem almost intentional.
I don't know who it could benefit, who possibly could benefit.
I wonder. But, okay, sorry, Lance, I cut you off. And I cut you off for a reason. And the reason is because I want to talk about this next story. And the next story is that Elton John has come out. And, of course, he's getting all the attention because he's got a new bioflick coming out. He comes out and he was at a concert and he slammed Brexit. And he says, I'm a European. I am not a stupid colonial imperialist English idiot. So, number one, I would like to say he is a stupid colonial imperialist English idiot because he would not be where he was enjoying the fucking celebrity he has, if not for that whole history that they went through. But Lance, I'll leave it to you. Elton John feels that he is beyond his country. He is not a stupid person for objecting to Brexit. So I'll let you counterpoint, Elton John. Sir. Wait. The guy's a fucking knight of England. Take away his knighthood. No more knight for you. Right? No more knight for you.
Sir Elton John, isn't he? He's knighted and everything, right?
Yeah, he's a fucking knight of England, this piece of shit. And he's like, I'm not. God, what a dickhead. I just realized that right now. So I'm yelling him right now. You are, you shithole. Anyway, go ahead.
What a piece of shit. Why do we give a shit about what these what any celebrity says, right? It's just because they have a huge following and then the progressive media blows it up. I don't know. I get really tired of it. But my stance is actually pretty interesting because so I'm actually a federally registered.
We'll be the judge of that. Thank you, Lance.
Yeah. I'm a Native American. Like I have a card and everything, right? And there were some benefits when I was growing up and all that other stuff. I've always been really happy that we were colonized because I like iPhones, I like clean water, I like all the technology. We're on a Zoom meeting right now. Pretty sure this wouldn't happen without these white pilgrims. So thank you for your service, Brian Williams.
You are welcome, Lance. Wait, is Cayko a Native American name?
No, not at all. Not at all. That's a whole other story for a different podcast.
All right. Well, I look forward to hearing it. But okay, but you were talking about Brexit, though. I don't want to cut you off. You were talking about Brexit. I want to hear more of what you had to say about Brexit and why Brexit's a good thing, because I'm sure I agree with you 100%. But I cut you off early, so I want you to finish.
Brexit is decentralization, right? I mean, they're breaking off from this stupid European Union. I think they should be independent countries, even though there's a couple bad things about that, right? Nationalism, right? The Nazis were part of nationalism, nationalized socialism.
True.
So there's always like a double-edged sword with all these movements, and that's been like how it's been criticized by the progressives is that, wow, look at all this nationalism that's happened, and then who's the lady from, what is it, France? No, Germany, who just got
Merkel,
yeah, so she got elected, and they were claiming that was also an issue, right? It's like, oh, the rise of nationalism. I don't know, it was France actually. It was
Marie Le Pen.
Yep, Marie Le Pen.
Yep.
So she's supposedly the Trump version of France, right? But I like it because I really think we've expanded too far. We've tried to have this homogenous thing. I would love to see the UN dissolved. I would love to see the European Union dissolved. I would love to see the United States dissolved into just little tiny countries. And then we do our own thing. And then, I mean, down to the individual, like I'm my own country at the end of the day. Let's just get to that level.
Well, it's what's so surprising to me is these people don't seem to see the big picture of it. They decry it as racism and rejection of socialism or whatever else. But look, you've got a government organization which you cannot vote on, which oversees regulations that impact every single person in your country, and which has a bloated budget which is not available to you to easily see. Why would anybody not oppose that? I mean, it seems like the most rational thing in the world.
Well, they're stupid imperialist colonialists. Yeah.
I mean, look, and to Lance's point, obviously, again, maybe the theme of this episode is maybe that's what we'll title this episode. The LALDL, Mike Brancatelli and Lance Cayko, you are a product of your time. But we talk about these people shitting on, I'm not a colonialist, imperialist. Okay, you're talking about 200 years ago, jackass, 200 years ago. Now, everybody was colonialist then. Every nation, all of the people in your European Union were colonialist, imperialist bastards. They all were. They all were expanding because they had the technology to do so. They expanded to the United States. They expanded and colonized Africa. They expanded all these different places because they were a product of their time. That's what you did. You expanded. You found new places. You conquered the tribes that had less technology than you. I'm sorry, those tribes. That was the way it was. And that's why I object to, we were talking about, we referenced slavery earlier, and not to excuse slavery in any way, shape, or form, by the way. But when we look at slavery, we had people crossing the seas to trade. They didn't conquer and enslave people like, let's per se, take like Muslims, enslave Christians here, or whatever else. But they traded with the African countries, brought back the slaves that they conquered themselves and sold to the colonialists. So you had this whole fucking world in which slavery was something everyone did. Everyone did. Not just the United States. Everyone did it. You had a world in which conquering people by force was what you did. You had a constant state of war. It's what you did. Now, thank fucking God, we are in a different time. So why do we dwell upon these things? Why do we dwell upon what happened in the past and use it as some sort of cudgel to beat people in the present when we have issues now that need to be dealt with, which is, like we were saying, the abdication of personal responsibility, attacks on personal liberty, a socializing of government, when we look at governments that committed all these atrocities, now I'm really drunk, can you tell? We look at governments committed all these atrocities under the colonial systems, which these people hate, the systems that created slavery, the systems that created, surfing. And now we're like, okay, we've evolved past that. Shame on the past. But you know what? Sounds great. One big fucking government to take it all over, to make us all into tax cattle. Like, it's fucking so stupid.
I mean, just to circle back around to the psychedelic experience, we're afraid to really be honest with ourselves. You know, it's like we're afraid to really be honest with how things are and how they can be. You know, it's like, oh, we don't, we must shame that, must, just denounce it. But it's like, look, the better part of doing that is, in psychedelics, what they call it is integration, right? And, Carl Jung wrote about this as integrating shadow, the darkest parts of you. I think as a society, as a collective humanity, human species, we got some dark shit that we've done. So let's, instead of denying it and shaming it, just own up to it. Be like, yeah, human beings are fucked up creatures. We definitely want to control, take over, slaughter people, sell people into slavery. But maybe that's not the most efficient and smartest way to do things. Now we can think a little bit clearer because we can learn from the past, but we don't seem to learn from the past. We seem to shame and neglect and hide the past and try and create some kind of bullshit fantasy future based on some bullshit fantasy past.
That's my fear about, and this is my fear about ripping down some of the colonial monuments, or not colonial, sorry, the monuments from the Civil War. Because I was like, okay, so you had a sect of the populace, including Lincoln, by the way, who was for slavery. He only was against slavery when it became politically unpopular and was going to impact his ability to win the war. But anyway, you have these monuments to a certain time period, and people say we should tear them down because we don't want to be reminded of those times, and those were horrible times. How are you going to learn from those times if you erase all evidence of the times? You need to keep them up specifically to remind yourself. Look, I work with a Holocaust organization, anti-genocide organization right now for my work, right?
Yeah, I just want to come out and say I'm also anti-genocide.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike.
You're so brave, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. You're a great guy.
Thing that I can say.
But the point is, these people and one of the Holocaust catchphrases. Can I make it sound any less relevant? Jesus. One of the anti-Holocaust branding phrases is, never again. Never again, right? No more Holocaust. Great. If you're not reminded of what happened, how can you say never again? Because it gets erased by the sands of time. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at all the things that have been erased that we've forgotten about. We're already forgetting about 10 million people killed under socialism and under communism. We're already forgetting about that. The people graduated college now have no idea. They don't know. So if we don't remember what happened with slavery and the Civil War, and granted, people reference slavery, still nonstop, but you need to have those indicators, those monuments to progress, to this is a past we need to remember but regret.
Right.
And if you don't have that, it's like even in your personal life, right? If you look at your own past and you black out all the shit you did that sucked, you're going to think you're a fucking great person and move forward as though nothing happened, as though you don't need to change. You need self-reflection.
And and you'll repeat the mistakes that you made because you're ignorant to them. Yeah.
You're going to have a Thaddeus Russell trip on mushrooms and be like, fuck, I've been blacking out a lot of shit I regret. To bring it full circle, guys, you see how this is why I'm hosting this show.
Good callback.
Good callback. So to bring it full circle, we as a culture need to be open to looking the past in the face and not glossing it over and not printing it up and not making it seem like, okay, this is a shameful thing that happened, but it was just us and we moved past it. No, it was a thing that existed everywhere. And we need to look it in the fucking face and identify why it happened and see where we are right now and move forward as a society. And obviously, as a society, the best way to move forward is libertarianism. Oh. Yeah. Look at the way that worked out.
Well, that's literally why I want Bernie to go against Trump. I want Bernie to get the nomination because I want middle America to face communism. I want just the average Democrat to realize you you could possibly elect a communist. And I want Trump to go up there and slap him verbally and literally call him out as a communist, because I think Trump is the only one that has the balls to do it. He has nothing to lose. That guy's not. He's very wealthy. He's after he's presidency, he's going to be even more wealthy. He's got nothing to lose. He'll go up there and slap Bernie silly. If Bernie doesn't get the nomination, I will be so sad. If it is just stupid Biden and Bernie, we're not going to face that reality of we are one generation away from communism.
Biden's going to get it. Bernie's
I don't
gonna
understand how the hell people could be attracted to communism or socialism. Have you been to the DMV? Have you been to the post office? Do you want your life to look like that? Because that's what it'll look like. It's like, come on.
Man, there's and it just the way I always counter, especially socialized medicine, is I just point to the UK, right? Because the UK, it's the craziest thing, man. If you look at the UK, you ask people in the UK, they go, "What are you most proud about as an Englishman?" And they go, "Our healthcare system." And I swear to God, they've done polls about this. Our healthcare system. And you look at cancer survival rates in the UK compared to the United States, it's like 75% different. It takes your breath away. These people are literally being killed by their government because the United States, because we have the option of just going private and doing it all our own way, even if you rack up that debt, your cancer survival rates are so much higher. And that's the biggest threat to anybody right now.
Yeah.
So socialism for idiots. Gentlemen, you guys have been very kind with your time. I know it's getting late. Was it 9:30 in Denver?
8:30.
8:30.
It's early. Let's do a bonus show after this.
Sure.
I will. Yeah. Mike, you in?
I got time. Yeah.
All right. We're doing a bonus show, baby. All right. But that's only for our Pride members, you chumps. So, guys, let me wrap this show up. Let me thank Lance Cayko for joining us here. Both of you guys are in Denver. You should have. I wish I'd gotten together at a pub. It would have been great. You could have been yelling over the crowd together as one. But no, Lance, thank you for coming on, man. Great to talk to you, my friend. You've been a longtime supporter of the show. Really appreciate that. And the work you are doing in Denver is laudable and inspirational. So thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Brian. It was awesome.
And Mike, hey, you were here too.
I was.
No, Mike, you're. But again, guys, make sure to listen to Mikeadelic podcast. You can go to MikeBrank.com. Of course, Mike, you've been a man who's. People may remember you from the Dave Smith Part of the Problem, which you're on for a while, but I think more impressive as your own man.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. I still get compliments to this day for Part of the Problem. It was a great run, and, I left to do my own thing. So, yeah, check out Mikeadelic. Cognitive liberty is what we're focused on. So
cognitive liberty, baby. Like I said, I love that concept. And, yeah, man, no, you were great at Part of the Problem, and I lost my train of thought. Well, anyway, from Brian McWilliams, from Mike Brancatelli, from Lance Cayko, thank you guys. This has been Electric Libertyland. Of course, reminder to always listen to Lions of Liberty. We have 3 shows. Mark Claire on Mondays with in-depth interviews with leaders of the libertarian movement. Me on Wednesdays with Electric Libertyland. John Odermatt on Fridays with Felony Friday. So from me, from these gents, from the Lions of Liberty, and from Electric Libertyland, always stay plugged into liberty.